Keith, if you can hear me, I can't hear anything. Alan, Sean, could you guys hear anything? No, okay. I'm not alone.
I can hear you, Tim.
Yeah, I can hear you as well.
So I can't hear anybody in the room. It's gonna make it hard for you guys to vote on anything.
That sign language would have come in handy.
Hey, Brad. Sorry again. Hey, audio going out to Zoom being broadcast from council dines. Can you think of anything that might cause it to not work off the top of your head?
Well, I can hear that.
Yeah, I think that was Mark. We heard you speaking.
Are they hearing that? Are they hearing me, or are they hearing? Am I being broadcast out there? Probably.
Mark, I'm just hearing you. I'm not hearing anyone from the dais.
Tim, can you hear me right now?
K2, yes, I can hear you. Or who's talking?
Our room microphone.
I can hear someone humming.
Tim, can you hear me? Sean, you can hear me?
Can now.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Okay, let's stop touching it, guys. We're working.
They're hearing it.
Somebody hold the cable
good.
in place.
Whatever we did, we're
Duct
good.
tape.
Jiggling the
All right,
Rabbit ears.
so here we go. We did roll call. We acknowledge that Sean and Tim are here. Approval of agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Discussion on the motion to approve the agenda. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. We have 4 items on the consent agenda this evening. Item A is approval of the July 14th, 2022 City Council meeting minutes. Item B is resolution 2022-061, reappointing Brian Fairbanks to the Sherwood Budget Committee. Item C is resolution 2022-062, authorizing the city manager to sign a service order with 8x8 for telephony services. Item D is resolution 2022-063, recommending legislative priorities, the League of Oregon Cities for the 2023 legislative session.
Move consent.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, council. Next on the agenda is citizen comments. Anyone like to address council on a topic not in the public hearing for this evening?
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
RJ Claus.
Now, first, what I'm giving you is any form of legal advice. I'm required to do this in exhausting administrative remedies and reaching finality. Because we're going to litigate with the city, it looks like. Now, I would caution you to be a little more careful than you were in that last meeting. When you deal with a land use issue, you're not dealing to be fair. You're dealing to apply the law consistently. Now, that's the kind of thing attorneys take advantage of. Because what you're talking about is the latter part of the Fifth Amendment and the 14th Amendment. Now, the way this starts is this is a statutory state. Now, I'm notifying you that I'm ill and I'm elderly, and I actually may have something that's terminal. So I would be careful to stir me up because we will be asking you for triple damages and attorney's fees. You're on notice of that now. Number 2, I wouldn't confuse a civil right with a property right. But what we want to do is experiment, and we're spending right now about $30,000. You just collect $10,000 in fees, having nothing to do with the cost of setting up a hearing from us. And that doesn't cover the attorney's fees, which are considerably more. And the litigation we're aiming at is similar to Nolan v. Tigard or Nolan versus the California Coastal Commission. And we will be asking for federal protection. And at a point, we will abandon the state courts and move to federal court. And you are to understand that we're doing this because we're not being given an alternative. And please don't tell me false and misleading statements have not been made, because we already have state and county officials giving us documents authenticating the falseness of some of those statements. Now, why you would make them or an elected official would make them, I don't know, and I don't care. I was in a situation like this once before the Bureau of Reclamation. It cost 8.5 years of my life and all of our assets when we beat them. And what we paid was pennies on the dollar, what they had to pay to correct the mistake they made. I don't really care, because at this point, I've seen what I view as incredibly urban deterioration in this town that should never have occurred. And I've seen decisions that all I can do is smile and say, as Bob Oliphant says, luck will always be brains. I've seen you give away millions in public funds to named individuals to change the morphology of this city and to drive citizens out that objected. And it's going to be fun because I may be dead. But I have 3 boys, 4 actually. One's got a PhD and he'll be helping, that are attorneys. And they're all criminal attorneys because that's what I wanted them to be. We need defense from people that are constant violating our civil and constitutional rights. So I think your mayor is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to give citizen comment? Seeing no one else interested, we will move to public hearings. David, welcome. First is resolution 2022-064, updating the city of Sherwood water system development charges methodology and amending the fee schedule.
Mayor and council, excuse me, David, prior to David, I need to read this statement.
Perfect.
Council will hold a public hearing this evening to receive testimony on the resolution 2022-064, updating the city of Sherwood water system development charges, methodology, and amending the fee schedule, and resolution 2022-065, updating the city of Sherwood parks system development charges, methodology, and amending the fee schedule. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present a staff report. Questions, if any, by the city council or staff. We will then consider a written or testimony. We will then open the public hearing for testimony and limit the time to 4 minutes per person. We will then close the public hearing. Final comments by staff, questions of staff, if any, by the council, followed by council discussion. If you wish to speak, please fill out a request to speak form and submit it to the city recorder prior to the time the public hearing is open for testimony. The mayor will recognize people who wish to speak, and any comments must be addressed through the mayor. When you come forward, please state your name and place of residence for the record, as this hearing will be recorded.
Thank you, Sylvia. David.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. As we've already discussed, we're here to discuss the water system development charges methodology. We do have Deb Giraldi from Rothstein Group. She was hired to perform an analysis of the city's water system, estimate future water requirements, identify any deficiencies, and evaluate the city's existing water rates and system development charges. If you can recall, back in, it was October 19th and December 7th, we held some work sessions on the water SDC, and she kind of went over some presentation materials. We did provide the 90-day notice as required by ORA statute 223-304, and a draft report was made available on our website early in June. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Deb, and she's just going to kind of go through a presentation, but I'm really unsure of what you folks are going to be able to see. So we do have a backup presentation here that you may be able to see. Deb, are you on the line?
I'm here and I am sharing my screen, which I'm hoping you can see just the title slide.
Yep, we got it.
Okay,
And we can see it online too.
great. Okay, I'm going to cover the update to the water SDCs, which includes 3 components. The first is the project list. That is the master plan list of capital improvement projects that state law requires that we include the project description, the costs, and the timing of the projects, and the percent eligible for improvement SDC funding. The SDC methodology is then the framework for how we determine the growth costs in the water system and the basis for charging different types of development. When we apply that framework to the project list, we get the SDC schedule. Oregon law allows us to include existing facility costs as well as those capital improvement projects. We refer to the existing facility component as the reimbursement fee. We can include facility costs that were funded by the city, so not externally funded developer contributions or grants. to the extent that there is available capacity in those facilities for future growth. Our analysis shows most facilities have 0 to 70% available capacity for growth, and we have included those respective amounts in the charges. The future improvements, as I mentioned, are based on the master plans that the city has adopted, and the specific costs related to the increased capacity for growth, which we determine on a facility by facility basis related to the system design criteria and what is needed specifically for growth. The statutes allow SDC revenue to be spent on costs of complying with the statutes. And so we also include the cost of the SDC methodology development, some portion of the master planning to develop the project list, and SDC accounting costs incurred by the city. The updated SDC per equivalent dwelling unit, or EDU, is $8,836, which is a 35% increase over the current SDC. The primary reason for the increase is that we have modified the methodology to base the reimbursement fees on the estimated replacement cost. So it includes the increase in value over time as estimated by increases in the construction cost index. The project improvement costs have also been updated to include new projects that have been added to the master plan, and to include land costs for pump stations and additional contingencies for pipe projects due to the increases in the material costs. The growth improvement costs total $63 million over the full planning period. And those are primarily supply and transmission and distribution costs, with some minor costs for storage upgrades and new pump stations. And a number of the costs of the improvements are 100% SDC eligible and growth related, because they are extending or adding the next increment of capacity in the system. With the increases, you can see in this comparison that the city's water SDC is well within the range charged by other regional utilities, most of which are charging in the 8,000 to just over 10,000 per EDU range. The SDC methodology includes a scaling factor for development, charging larger developments for their additional capacity needs. It's based on the meter size, the water meter size, which is an indicator of hydraulic capacity required to serve the development. And so those factors range from 1.5 to 30 for like a 4-inch meter, which I believe is the largest meter size in the system. Finally, as David mentioned, this is a methodology update, so we did follow the statutory requirements with respect to updating the methodology, which was the 90-day notice, the 60-day review. In the future, the city can update the project list and the SDC schedule separate from changes to the methodology. You can add projects to the list, make changes as needed without going through the required, a methodology update. And future inflationary adjustments may be made to the SDC schedule annually. With that, happy to answer questions.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions? Tim's hand is up.
Yeah, thank you, Deb, for that presentation. That was awesome. And I appreciate all the work you've done and the multiple work sessions that you've attended and making sure we all understand this. I just wanted to make one comment more for the viewing public, because they're probably going, what are these SDCs and what's an EDU? System development charges are basically how the city funds the infrastructure needed to grow. So, and it basically puts those fees upon the people causing the growth, the developers. So when people buy if someone wants to build a home, you're basically paying for the additional capacity that we need in our water system to service that home. So that's kind of the basics of the SDCs. And it's frankly one of the few ways cities have to pay for those increases in capacity to our infrastructure without having to go out to the citizens and ask for another tax levy or something like that. So I just want to make sure the people listening kind of understood the larger context, all that. Did I get all that right, by the way, Deb? I didn't misspeak.
Absolutely, you did.
Thank you.
Deb, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Deb, I have a question on slide 7. You said the total SDC, and then you showed, the $8,000. Is that per EDU, or was that for the whole development?
That's correct. That's per EDU, and it would scale up based on the size of the water meter. So most residential dwellings are served by the smallest meter size, and so it would be 8,836 per dwelling unit. For multifamily and large commercial industrial that require larger meter sizes, the SDC would be based on that meter size.
So if I have a multifamily that has a bigger, the bigger size up meter, then let's say there's 4 families that are living there, I would pay 4 times that SDC of the bigger pipe?
No, you would pay based on and I can share the screen again just to show you on the schedule. Let's see. Oops. So looking here, can you see that schedule?
Yeah, so if I have a 4, let's just say for 4 EDUs, I put in the 3/4 one. Is it 4 times the 13,000, or is it 13,000 for that?
So in EDU is based on the meter size. It's not based on the number of dwelling units in the case of multifamily served by a single meter. Usually you can get multiple dwelling units for any given meter size. So it's all tied to the meter size. So if you can get 5 or 8 units in a 1-inch, serviced by a 1-inch meter, you're going to pay 2.5 times the EDU, not 8 times. So it's not, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff at this point before I open it to the public?
I just one more question from my side, and this is more of a future question, but a lot of agencies are requiring sprinklers in multifamily units now, and the addition of a sprinkler system automatically kicks you up to a bigger meter, but it's only to handle that capacity during a fire or something like that, not during just normal use. Are they looking at how to address SDC fees in those circumstances? Have you any insight on that?
Sure, it's quite common to allow to have a policy that states explicitly that if you are upsizing for a fire sprinkler system to the next meter size, that you will be charged for the lower meter size, because it is, as you said, it's just for emergency purposes, and the SDCs relate to the maximum day water demand. So what you're requiring ongoing in the peak season, not under emergency conditions.
So we could just handle that through a policy change.
Exactly.
If it becomes an issue. Great, thank you.
Great. Any other questions at this point? All right. So anyone that can in the audience here want to give testimony on this proposed resolution? Yeah, one, David. So you want to step away? Our clause. And once we're finished with folks in the building testifying, we'll ask for anybody online that wants to testify. Welcome.
I'm told I'm the only person that speaks the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. other than cotton land and cattle, and that ran into the millions in a lawsuit over water. Whoever you were talking to, I've forgotten more than she'll ever know. Water is about 325 gallons an acre foot. We get 48 inches of rain here. Almost all of the water you use residentially, particularly in apartments, is recirculated back in the system. Bull Run, for instance, now pays for the police department. And it's the most regressive tax you can find because it falls on the least able to pay it. And that's what you're doing. You're creating a system here that isn't recirculating. It's not using these. And on top of that, it appears you're destroying the water table with this new mess industrial center in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Refuge. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You've taken a village that could have been self-sufficient in water, pennies. You've one that could have been inexpensive, and we ballooned it up, calling it cost of the water. You could have segregated out the retail commercial areas with the residential. You could have had point source control, and you could have reused that water over and over. And instead, we paid $42 million for it was a pipeline we brought in here without even a contract that was enforceable. We didn't get an appropriative water right. This simply becomes overwhelming, the drive to drive people out and to raise costs when you had opportunities to do opposite. We aren't going to the Fish and Wildlife, getting them to preserve our water table and use wells we could use without affecting anything because they would have been recharged out of the scablands and off of Tonkin. But no, we came up with this, wasn't the phrase you used, Mayor Mays, water is the next gold. It's the next tax. And it's the next thing to drive people out of town that you don't believe belong here. Anytime you find out what you're doing, you're in a circulation. And you're going to find that collection of voters in Woodhaven are going to find out what's happened to them. They're on an island that gets surrounded by dissimilar uses. I don't know what's going on, but I can tell you the minute I hear those figures, I think of what John Wiley said to me. We have to flush the water out of the Owens Valley, 16 miles in the ocean, 1,300 feet under it, because if we didn't keep doing it, we couldn't keep charging for it. And that's what we're doing. We had a great system and we've abandoned it. Everything's become high cost. And in time, it's going to come back to the elected officials. And now we're robbing the wildlife out of their water with this new mess on 124th. Or are you even aware of that? My guess is you aren't. And that's why this isn't a village. That's why it's deteriorating. That's why you're forcing your most generous citizen in your history to litigate with you, because you keep picking fights on false premises. And I've had enough. We've dedicated so much land, and statements about the Robin Hood Theater, Roy Rogers, the commissioner, just showed me. Anybody to repeat that is not just a liar, they're a malicious liar.
All right, anyone else want to give testimony on the proposed resolution? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing portion of resolution 2022-064. Discussion, council, any questions, additional questions on the proposed resolution or discussion?
Mm-mm.
Is there a motion? I don't see hands up with Tim or Sean, so is there a motion?
I move resolution 2022-064, updating the city of Sherwood water system development charges, methodology, and amending the fee schedule.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving resolution 2022-064, updating the city of Sherwood water system development charges, methodology, and amending the fee schedule, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, council. Thank you, David. Next item is, Sylvia, you read it for both. So next item is resolution 2022-065, updating the city of Sherwood Parks System Development Charge methodology and amending the fee schedule. Welcome, Eric.
Welcome. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. So tonight before you is a resolution to update the city of Sherwood's park system development charges methodology and to amend the fee schedule. Earlier this past spring and early summer, we had 2 work sessions on this topic. In addition, the 90-day notice, public notice for these changes in the draft report was published in accordance with state statutes. And this evening, we have John Ghilarducci on the line with us from SCS Consulting Group, who's been helping us through this project. And he will be going through a presentation, explaining the park methodology report. And with that, we can answer like any questions after that presentation. So I want to turn this over to John.
Unmute. Thank you. And good evening, everyone. I found that if I shift into presentation mode with my slide deck, my monitor goes dark. So I have to present it as is.
Fine.
Hopefully you can see that okay.
Yes.
So I will go through a very brief introduction. Deb covered a lot of the basics of system development charges. So I'll sort of speed through the background and we'll get right into a refresher of the park SDC calculation. We do have some additional information that was requested from the May 2nd, but also the June 21st work session. And we'll talk about a funding plan as well. We know what system development charges are, the one-time fees paid at the time of development by new development. We followed the law very closely. Deb talked about the reimbursement fee and the improvement fee, the 2 components of a system development charge. The park SDC is made up entirely of an improvement fee because there's not quantifiable capacity, unused capacity in the existing park system. So our focus will be on the improvement fee tonight. These are the city's existing charges for a new single-family dwelling unit in the city of Sherwood. You see the total fee there, about $8,999. And similarly for a multifamily dwelling unit, manufactured home unit, and then for a non-residential or commercial establishment, that charge is per employee. It's converted to a square footage charge depending on the type of commercial establishment. So we'll show you that as a square footage charge in an example in a minute for the newly calculated charges. So the calculation of the proposed park system development charge is summarized here. We have a cost basis, and this is the improvement fee cost basis of a little over $68 million. That is of a total project list of about 125 million. So a little over half of that is SDC eligible, improvement fee eligible, and includable in the calculation. We divide that by projected growth in residential equivalents to derive the SDC per person or per residential equivalent. That unit cost, the $5,249, is converted to charges per dwelling unit by the average occupancy based on the latest census information. So you see resulting charges for a single family dwelling unit of a little under $15,000, for a multifamily unit, $9,310, manufactured home, $9,622, and an accessory dwelling unit, $5,249. The per employee rate of $573, as I mentioned, will show you how that would apply, at least in the case of an office building, as a square footage charge. So this table's been updated since we looked at it in June, in part because Deb knew that Tualatin Hills Park and Rec District had just updated their charges last month, or I guess that's 2 months ago. So the THPRD charges for North Bethany and district-wide are very current now. And you can see they have increased since we looked at this in mid-June. Just to give you again a sample of some other charges in the region. Of course, everybody's needs and systems are different. So one of the things we talked about at the June work session, we had a couple of phasing options, and the council asked to look at a two-step phasing option. So if we are assuming that first step in January, and this would be to ease the impact of such a significant increase from almost 9,000 to almost 15,000. So the city could decide to move in two steps, first in January and then in July up to the full amount of the charge. And that would give the development community a chance to adapt and budget to the new charges. You see how the phasing would impact each of the different dwelling unit charges to arrive at the maximum, and then also the non-residential charge per employee. That we are calling this before inflation because we would also propose that the city index the charges with cost escalation, so that once we know what that is, then also apply that to keep pace with inflation. So the it was that comparison chart that has the non-residential charge converted to a square footage charge, and this would apply in the case of an office building. Different types of commercial establishments have different employee densities, so their rate per square foot would differ. But just to give you a basis of comparison, that rate would be $1.64 per square foot for an office building, comparable to some of the others you see in the table. So the funding plan is simply a reminder that of that $125 million of capital improvements, about $68 million, if everything works correctly, will come from system development charges. There's still a need for other funding in order to make up that difference that's non-SDC eligible. So tonight is the public hearing, of course, at which the council could decide to adopt the full SDC, a phasing option, or other options as shown there. And we're further recommending, as is documented in our report, that the city continue to index the charges with inflation, whichever of options they choose. And that's all of my prepared material. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, John. Does council have any questions of John at this point?
I do.
Right ahead.
And regarding the phased approach and the different dates, is the date that is applicable based on the application date or the building permit issuance date, or what date is relevant?
So the date that you make it effective, then any SDCs triggered after that point would be subject to
my question is,
okay,
what triggers the SDC? Is it the date the application is submitted, or when a building permit is issued, or when the occupancy permit? Like, when are SDCs triggered and calculated in general? It might be an Erica question.
At the time of building permit.
Okay. Thank you. So if somebody has an application already in process, then they would potentially get the old rates if they get their building permit in time before the new rates kick in, or whatever the graduation schedule works.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions at this point before we open it to the public? Anyone here in the audience or remote like to give testimony on the proposed resolution? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing on this proposed resolution. Eric is, no one's testifying. And does anybody have So back to council. Does council have questions for staff? Discussion on the proposal?
It just kind of informational, kind of along the lines of Tim's last one. You know, people see $125 million worth of projects, and that's based on our parks master plan. Now, keep in mind, that doesn't mean there's going to be $125 million worth of park development happen overnight or even potentially at all. So that's a plan. Nothing in that plan is a commitment. But it is a recognition that we have, at least now, if this goes into place, there's funding mechanism to fund some of those improvements over a 10 to 20-year horizon as future councils and whatnot see fit to fund them in Parks Board and stuff. So I just want to make it clear that it's a very, very large number, but it doesn't mean all of a sudden there's this huge pot of money to go build a bunch of parks tomorrow. So
yeah, but if any park in this town, for the most part, was paid for by development fees in the past. With a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, that is the case.
Yeah, sorry,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna add some other commentary
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the
go ahead.
measure. I mean, certainly, you know, people in this town definitely like our parks and want more of them. So I'm in support of you know, doing what we need to do to ensure we can continue to have great parks now and in the future of this community. So I'm in support of this. I'm still a little unclear on the need for phasing, whether we wouldn't just go all in immediately, but I'd love to hear others' thoughts on that.
Great. And one question for staff: as it's written, it is phased, right? The resolution as it's written, and as written, it is got the automatic indexing. Correct.
Correct.
Okay. And if council wanted to implement it and remove the phasing, we could make a motion to amend with relative ease. In the past, we've done it both ways, I think, in the different times this is a third or fourth time I've voted on amending the park SDC and other SDCs. Just the park SDCs, third or fourth time. And I think we've phased it once and we've just implemented it all at once a couple times. So kind of I think the time we phased it, it was when it went from 500 per unit to 5,000 or 6,000 per unit. But
Yeah,
discussion.
my only comment is I do realize that this raises the cost for people to develop here and to purchase homes here. And I'm with Councillor Scott that I think that the citizens that have reached out to me say that they're willing to pay more for a house in Sherwood because of the parks and the trails and, you know, some of these amenities that you don't get in other cities. And so I appreciate the thought that's gone into this. I don't have a good instinct one way or the other, whether phasing it or is there an additional cost to the city to phase it? Or is it just, is it going to be simple?
It's just simply
lawsuits?
Opportunity
Lost. Okay, lost. Yeah, so I would, you know, frankly, I would just say I'd probably be in favor of it just being done at once, but I could be convinced otherwise as well.
Tim, you have your hand up, I see.
I do, thank you. Yeah, I don't know if I'm in favor of phasing it either for many of the reasons that Taylor and Doug just mentioned. I would also add that there's a lot of activity in Salem at the legislature level for this next session where they want to move where we collect fees instead of, like, for instance, instead of SDCs being paid when you get the permit, when you apply for the permit, not having to pay for them until occupancy. So I think we get ahead of a little bit of that. And just one comment for the public too, to kind of add on to what Doug was talking about. All of these monies, and this applies to the previous SDCs we talked about for the water fund, they go into a fund and are protected. We're not allowed by law to move those monies around and take like SDCs that are intended for parks and use them for hiring people or doing capital projects in other areas.
Street maintenance or something
street
like that.
maintenance or anything like that, so that they are protected. And I would point out too, we have amazing parks, and our city has done a great job of developing those parks and those amenities for our community. And we're doing it at a rate lower than what a lot of other communities are paying for right now. So I'm in favor of moving forward with this.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Sean's hand's not up at this point.
No, I have nothing really to add. I think, yeah, our ex-planning commissioners here have done a great job laying out the foundation for what we're talking about here today. So I'm in agreement.
I would be more in favor of phasing it in as in the resolution. I think it is a pretty significant jump in both the single family and the multifamily.
John, do you have an opinion on to do it over 6 months or do it just once in January?
Not a terribly strong position. Is that part of the vote? Is that it needs to be decided tonight here on how we're gonna do that?
Correct.
Yeah, I'd say let's just do it.
Okay.
Display again with the big was schedule. That's something to do.
So it was January 1 is the first increase, and then
July 1 is. the
July
next
1 was the
increase.
was the other.
And then it will so be fully in place by July.
Correct.
Or we do it all.
Correct.
I don't see a material difference. I'd rather secure as much funds built first as possible.
You want to?
Is there any risk that it would stall out projects that are currently in the works? I mean, they just added on to the top of the bill.
Projects that are already in the works are protected. They get
Right, but if I haven't applied yet for the permit, you know, and I'm going to be applying the next, you know, few months, you know, in February, let's say, is there a risk that I would pull it back because we're doing it all the way in?
Anything's possible. It's hypothetical. It's tough to determine. I suspect that, you know, the development community is smart, and that they would initiate their activity before fees change.
Yeah.
To get the lower fee. So, you know, in one way by.
Yeah, so I feel like
in a way you're accelerating development a little bit by potentially.
Yeah, and frankly, if they're that close where they could accelerate it, it feels like giving them the extra 6 months is just mostly leaving money on the table versus, you know, projects that are quite a bit out, it wouldn't make a difference anyway, right? And so if they're in that 6 month window and they could accelerate, then they would. And if they're further out, then it wouldn't matter. So I'm for doing it all at once, but I think I'm with Sean that that's not the hill I'm gonna die on if
So would 3 or 4 of you just suggested to do it in one swoop? Does someone want to make a motion to that effect or make a motion on the text as submitted?
I don't have the right terminology, but
Erica will work with you, or Alan, our attorney, will work with you if you're wanting to propose a motion.
I move that we amend the, I need the name, the word, I don't have anything in front of me, so.
resolution.
Yeah, I move that we amend resolution 2022-065, updating the city of Sherwood Park System Development Charge methodology and amending the fee schedules to bring the entire change in effect as of January 1st, 2023.
Is that motion clear? I believe the motion
Yes.
is clear.
Yes.
Alan's shaking his head too.
Yes.
There a second
Okay.
to that motion?
I'll second.
Taylor seconds the motion. Discussion on the
Thank
motion. All in favor of the motion to amend resolution 2022-065 to remove the phasing so that it's implemented January 1, 2023. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries. Thank you, council. We have an amended resolution. Discussion on the amended resolution. Is there a motion on the amended resolution?
I
Or
apologize.
Al?
Merrick, if I could interrupt for a second.
Yeah.
There's people outside trying to get into the meeting, and I guess the door's locked. If someone could go out and open the door for them.
She
here.
got in.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
So we have an amended resolution for consideration. Does anyone want to make a motion or discussion on the amended resolution?
I move that we approve a resolution 2022-65 as amended, updating the City of Sherwood Parks system development charge methodology and amending the fee schedule.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on the motion. No discussion. All in favor of approving the amended resolution 2022-065, updating the City of Sherwood Park system development charge methodology and amending the fee schedule, say aye.
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 Tim, did you say aye?
I did. Aye.
Aye. My ears aren't perfect by any stretch. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Thank you, council. Thank you, Erica. Moving on to city manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Just a couple of things. Our last Music on the Greens is tomorrow evening. It is Taken by the Sky, a Fleetwood Mac tribute band.
Fleetwood Mac tribute band.
So, and then from there, our Movies in the Park will start Friday, August 12th at 8:30-ish PM with Sing 2. And my daughter assures me I can see Sing 2 before, without having seen Sing 1. So I guess it's independent. You don't need the background story. It's a self.
Again, remind what movie?
Sing 2.
Sing 2.
Great
I
movie.
need to, all right, so we don't need to watch Sing 1 to be able to appreciate Sing 2.
It's
All right.
it, according to my 12-year-old daughter, stands alone. So
Brilliant. That's good.
and then also just wanted to announce the Community Enhancement Program, the CEP. We have opened up a second round of funding for the Metro Enhancement Community Program Grant. Opportunity is open to nonprofits, organizations, and city advisory committees with projects that help improve the community. Applications are being accepted now through September 15th.
Awesome.
Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Keith. Questions for Keith or his team?
Keith, on the grants, Keith, if I assume you're already doing this, but just out of extreme caution, could you make sure the Historical Society knows about that opportunity as well? If you haven't already. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Other questions of Keith or his team? Well, you're getting off relatively easy. Awesome. Thank you, Keith. Moving on to council announcements. Anyone have announcements to make on council? Let's start remotely. Sean.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and make one, I think, tonight. Kind of an exciting announcement that came out of Pride Disposal back in July. And I don't know if it got the widespread communication that I think it deserves, is that they actually have recently started accepting the plastic clamshell plastics for recycling at their recycling depot on Tualatin Sherwood Road. And it's the #1 PET or PETE clamshell plastics, the one piece hinged ones that you get your strawberries, blueberries, and other things in. I think that's exciting. If you're like our family who eats a lot of fruits from the vegetables or that from the grocery store that unfortunately come in plastic containers, which is a frustration to no end that we have to put good food in bad containers. But Pride is now accepting those. So go to their website or their Facebook page and look that up. And if you're like us, you've got a bag or two full of those stacked in your garage waiting for this day to come. So that to me is exciting. So instead of throwing those out, you can recycle them now. So I don't think I have anything else. Just hopefully everybody made it through the heat okay and is in a place for this coming weekend, because it sounds like it's going to get hot again this weekend. So I think we all are in recent practice on this, but check in with your folks who may not have AC this weekend and see what you can do to help them out. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Sean. Remote number 2, Tim.
Remote number 2, that's funny. So I got a few things. I just got back last Friday from a trip to Atlanta on behalf of the city to the National League of Cities Leadership Conference. Great meetings out there, a lot of good information coming back that I'll share with staff in terms of grant opportunities, cybersecurity, and some of the other subjects that we were discussing out there. We did a lot of work on updating the policy direction for the NLC, which is very similar to what we just went through with League of Oregon Cities and updating their policy statements. And for the public, what that means is these groups go out and lobby on behalf of the city at the federal level, and those policy statements tell them what to lobby for. And you know, and a lot of it hinges around it, making sure resources are coming to the cities directly as opposed to getting funneled through the state, which we've had some wins on. So that was a good meeting. Some good news. I found out last week that I was appointed to the Oregon Broadband Advisory Council by the governor's office, which is great for the city. The League of Oregon Cities endorsed my candidacy for that, and as well as a lot of different folks, including Pete Truax and Courtney Neron, representative, who I think is in the audience out there today, also endorsed it. But that's great for us because we'll be able to advocate for broadband access for all members of our community and represent other cities as well. And I think Sherwood is a great city to have on that committee. They only had one slot for cities for the entire state, but since we operate our own broadband network, I think we were a great choice to get onto that committee so we can influence the regulatory rulemaking around how all of these broadband dollars that are coming from the federal government are used. So super excited about that, and super excited to represent Sherwood and other cities on that committee. And then on less exciting stuff, I covered for Keith with a WCCC Washington County Coordinating Committee workshop on tolling and all the pitfalls and
super exciting
stuff, but a lot of
frustrating.
Yes, a lot of conversation with myself and the other mayors that were on there about equity when it comes to tolling, and who it impacts, diversion, which is a fancy term for people who use side streets to avoid the tolls, etc. And frankly, there's some big disconnects between what ODOT wants and what we want in our region for that. So we had a lot of good, healthy conversation around that. And then just on the fun side, I also just got back a couple weeks ago from taking 40 kids to space camp in Huntsville, Alabama. We had a successful trip and we didn't lose any kid, so I was very happy. So
they all lived, or you didn't lose them as in they wandered off into the forests?
They all had a great time, and they all came back healthy, and we got them back to their parents, and it was a great trip. So
awesome. Great. Thanks, Tim. Doug?
I don't have a whole lot this week. I just follow up with Sean. The batteries are also recyclable with Pride now. You put them fill up a Ziploc bag and put it in your glass recycling container, and they will pick those up curbside. Sean, I wasn't clear. Those clamshell containers, can you put them in your recycle bin, or you have to take them to the
Those do currently need to be brought to the depot. They are beginning a program in some of the unincorporated areas that are doing a curbside pickup that's going to have a separate bin, but I do not believe that is coming to within city limits yet. So yeah, that does need to be brought down to the depot.
Hope for the
but
future.
Yeah, if you've ever brought anything down to the Pride Recycling Depot, it's a quick, easy, pull up your car. They've got bins put everywhere. It's super easy to do. So.
Thank you.
Renee?
Nothing else.
I had a bunch of notes and I left them on my desk. So I don't have any updates, but I did miss the last meeting because I was back home visiting family and friends and hanging out at the lake. So sorry to have missed, but vacations.
Awesome. Good for you.
I just wanted to report on the planning commission meeting that happened last week. We heard about a new multifamily unit that was going in off of Sherwood Boulevard, kind of by the by the Sherwood School District offices now, just down the road from that. And
That 9-unit one.
9-unit, yep. And the thing that was really, really impressive to me was seeing new faces in the crowd and the people that were coming in and participating in the process. And granted, there's people on both sides of it, so not everybody's going to be happy, but I appreciate the voices being voiced and being, you know, and being part of the process. I see some young scouts are probably getting their citizenship and community badges, right? Communications, oh boy, they make you do that for that one too. Anyway, you know, it's phenomenal to see these people participating and to, you know, it really, this city is what it is because of the participation of the citizens. So I appreciate all the people that gave comments and committee, and in fact, they gave comments a couple of weeks ago, and the developer came back and voluntarily agreed to several of their comments, and so they were heard, and it was really something that was really positive for those people, I think. So continue to participate, and thank you, citizens of Sherwood, for doing that.
That's amazing.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. Just quick, there was a notification out last week or this last weekend about water supplies. It's important for anybody listening. There is zero risk of us being short on water as a community. It's just a matter of when they install this replacement pump and if we need to turn on our pumps for our well water versus water from the plant. And so it's just a matter of a timing. And so we ask you to voluntarily not do something extraordinary, like, you know, don't wash your car in your driveway if you don't normally do that. Don't power wash your driveway or your sidewalk if you don't normally do that. But please irrigate like you normally irrigate. Please flush your toilets when you normally flush the toilets. And all is well. So there was I got some concern emails about it, but rest assured, we have zero risk of not having enough water to meet the needs of our community. And it's always also just interesting. Some people are who don't maybe normally watch city council meetings or planning commission meetings. Just as a reminder, people aren't under oath when they give testimony or citizen comment. So things are said as counselors or planning commissioners. We listen and then we respond if we think there's, you know, relevance to a topic. I'll just leave it at that. But free speech is a foundation of our society, and I'll leave it at that. It has to be a busy month with a lot of different things. I hope people are still enjoying their summer, staying safe, staying cool. If you have concerns or risks about the heat, where it's cooling down now, but it's going to get hot again, the city does have designated cooling centers, cooling shelters, City Hall, Senior Center, Arts Center. The YMCA welcomes folks in when they're open. They've got a nice lobby. So be safe. Get the help when you need help. We want you to be here with us. So if you need help, reach out. That's what, you know, communities are for. So with that, we are going to adjourn this council meeting, take a very short break, and then we're going to go to an urban renewal board of directors meeting. So with that, we're adjourned. And thanks for being here.
And Keith, we're staying on this Zoom call, right?
Yes, we're going to stay on this Zoom call. We're going to continue to broadcast. Does anybody need a comfort break? It is a short meeting. We're going to stay here.
I'm good.
All right. So I think everyone's in agreement. We're just going to roll to, I'll change my, yeah. Thanks for being here. Sorry, we're another 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll be done.
What?
Oh, I just wanted to say hi to Sean.
Ah, so Sean, Logan is here. He's just saying hello.
Oh, hello.
He has
Hello?
messaged on social media. So sorry that
Excellent.
Sean wasn't here today to meet you in person, but
Sorry about that. And yes, and I know that there's at least one of the Boy Scouts in attendance there that I know as well. Is a friend of the family and lives in our neighborhood. Carson. Hello, Carson. Sorry, I couldn't be there in person. All right.
Yeah, so I've been where you are. All right, keep it up. You can do it. I could say, pull it across the finish line, man. It's a good one.
all right. So Sylvia, are you ready? We're still recording. We're still broadcasting. We got Sean, we got Tim. Oh, we got Keith. All right, everyone, like to call to order our regular Sherwood Urban Renewal Agency Board of Directors meeting for Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022. Roll call.
Chair Murray's,
Here.
Vice Chair Rosner,
Here.
Board Member Garland,
Here.
Board Member Browse,
Here.
Board Member Scott,
Here.
Board Member Giles,
Here.
and Board Member Young is absent.
Awesome. Thank you, Sylvia. We have three items on the consent agenda. Item A is approval of the June 29th, 2022 URA board meeting minutes. Item B is approval of the July 19th, 2022 URA board meeting minutes. And item C is URA resolution 2022-008, correcting URA resolution 2022-007, adopting the fiscal year 2022-23 budget of the city of Sherwood 2021 Urban Renewal Agency, making appropriations, imposing and categorizing taxes, and authorizing the agency manager to take such action necessary to carry out the adopted budget.
With consent.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, board. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.